Hello. On a walk, my girlfriend said, I want Aaron next to me at dinner. If that bothers you, leave. I said, okay, and quietly walked away. I changed the locks and slept alone. By morning, she was calling in tears because my silence told her what words didn't. I was gone for good. I'm Matt, 31M. My girlfriend, Jenna, 29F. We'd been together a little over 3 years, living together for one. This happened last Saturday. We were walking back from a coffee place near our apartment. One of those slow, nothing walks where you talk about random stuff. Work gossip. What to cook later. Whether we should finally replace the couch cushions the dog destroyed. Normal couple noise. She'd been in a mood all day. Short answers. Eye rolls. That sharp edge she gets when she's annoyed but wants you to ask why so she can accuse you of starting something. We were halfway down Maple Street when she brought up dinner that night. Her friend group was meeting at this overpriced tapas place downtown. I already knew Aaron would be there. Aaron is her coworker. The one she swears is basically family. The one who texts her memes at midnight and somehow always ends up sitting next to her. I didn't even object. I just said, hey, last time it felt kind of weird. You and Aaron barely talked to anyone else. She stopped walking, turned to me like I'd said something offensive. Then she said it. Calm, flat, almost bored. I want Aaron next to me at dinner. If that bothers you, leave. Now we can talk about it. Not your overthinking. Just a clean ultimatum dropped on the sidewalk like it was nothing. People were walking their dogs around us. A couple passed by laughing. The world didn't pause the way it felt like it should have. I looked at her for a second, waiting for the follow-up. The smirk. The I'm kidding. It didn't come. She crossed her arms like she'd already won. So I said, okay. That threw her off. Just for a moment. She blinked and scoffed. You're being dramatic. I didn't argue. Didn't raise my voice. I just turned around and walked home alone. At the time, she probably thought I meant I was leaving the conversation. Or the walk. She didn't realize I meant everything else. Not yet. When I got back to the apartment, it was quiet in that heavy, hollow way that only shared spaces have when one person isn't home yet. I stood in the entryway longer than I needed to, keys still in my hand, listening to nothing. This wasn't the first time Jenna had said something like that. It was the first time she said it so cleanly. No sugar. No humor. Just a rule. I sat on the edge of the couch and replayed the moment on Maple Street. The way she didn't even sound angry. The way she'd already decided my discomfort was irrelevant. That's the part that stuck. I checked my phone. No texts. No, are you okay? No, I didn't mean it like that. Just silence. So I started paying attention to details instead of feelings. Practical things. The lease was in my name. The internet, too. Utilities. I'd insisted on that when we moved in because her credit was a mess at the time. Her words, not mine. I went into the bedroom. Her side of the closet was chaos. Dresses crammed together, shoes scattered. My side was neat, boring, predictable. That difference used to be funny. Suddenly, it felt symbolic. I packed a small overnight bag. Not because I planned to leave forever. Not yet. I told myself I just needed space. That this was temporary. Before I zipped it up, I hesitated. Then I put the bag down. Why was I the one leaving my own place? That question landed harder than I expected. I opened my laptop instead. Looked up locksmiths. Closed it. Opened it again. Closed it again. My heart was racing, but my hands were steady. That scared me a little. Around 6:30, my phone buzzed. Jenna, we're meeting at 7. Are you coming, or should I tell them you're busy? No apology. No acknowledgement of the ultimatum. Just logistics. I typed back. I'm not coming. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Wow. Overreact much? That's when it clicked. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet internal shift, like something sliding into place. I didn't reply. Instead, I picked up the phone and called the locksmith I'd bookmarked. And for the first time all day, the silence felt intentional. The locksmith showed up faster than I expected. I let him in, nodded, answered a couple basic questions, and stood off to the side while he worked. There was nothing dramatic about it. No shaking hands. No second thoughts. Just the sound of metal clicking and tools being packed away. When he handed me the new keys, I thanked him and closed the door behind him. That was it. I leaned my forehead against the door for a second, not because I was overwhelmed, but because I needed to register that something irreversible had just happened. The apartment was quiet in a way it had never been before. Not tense. Not waiting. Just still. I walked through each room slowly. Bedroom. Bathroom. Living room. I wasn't looking for memories. I was checking facts. What was mine? What was hers? What belonged to both of us only because I'd allowed it to? I packed her things carefully. Not out of kindness, not out of anger. Just precision. Clothes folded. Shoes paired. Makeup placed back into drawers before going into boxes. I labeled everything with a black marker. Bedroom. Closet. Bathroom. No notes. No messages tucked inside. Just boxes. Around 7:30, my phone buzzed. Jenna, we're about to order. Are you seriously not coming? I didn't reply. Another message followed. Don't do this. I set my phone face down on the counter and made myself dinner. Ate standing up. The food barely registered. What I felt instead was a strange calm, like my nervous system finally realized it didn't have to stay on alert. Later that night, I showered, changed the sheets, and got into bed alone. Not lonely. Alone. Somewhere between changing the locks and turning off the lights, I understood something clearly for the first time. She told me to leave because she thought I wouldn't. And I stayed, because this time, I didn't need her permission to stop. I woke up in my own bed. For a split second, my body expected tension. Raised voices. The familiar feeling of needing to brace myself before the day even started. Instead, there was nothing. Just quiet and early morning light coming through the blinds. My phone was face down on the nightstand where I'd left it. When I picked it up, it buzzed like it had been holding its breath all night. Missed calls stacked into the 20s. Texts piled on top of each other, each one more frantic than the last. Why isn't my key working? Matt, answer me. Did you seriously change the locks? This is insane. Then the tone cracked. Where are you? Please stop. I'm outside. I sat on the edge of the bed and let the phone rest in my hands. No rush. No spike of adrenaline. Just confirmation. She hadn't expected silence. At 8:42 a.m., she called again. I answered this time. Matt. Her voice broke immediately. What is going on? I'm done, I said. My voice didn't shake. I meant it when I said okay. You changed the locks, she said, like she was still trying to figure out whether this was real. Yes. You can't just. She stopped herself and switched tactics. This is because of one sentence. No, I said. It's because you felt comfortable saying it. She started crying. Real crying. Saying she didn't mean it. That she was stressed. That she didn't think I'd actually leave. That part mattered. I believed you, I said. You told me exactly where I stood. Silence on the other end. By the time we hung up, she was begging, and I wasn't angry. I was finished explaining. I got ready for work like it was any other morning. Showered. Dressed. Made coffee. The difference was simple and permanent. This time, when I left the apartment, I locked the door behind me knowing exactly why. By the afternoon, the crying turned into anger. That was predictable. I was in a meeting when my phone started buzzing nonstop on the desk. I let it vibrate until it stopped. When I checked afterward, the messages had shifted tone again. So you're really doing this? After everything I've put into us? You're acting like I cheated on you. That one almost made me laugh. Almost. At 1:30, she showed up at my office. I know this because the receptionist messaged me. There's a woman here asking for you. She seems upset. I didn't go out there. I asked security to walk her out. Apparently, that's when it really hit her that I wasn't playing chicken. She sent one last text after that. You're humiliating me. I stared at that word for a long time. Humiliating. Not hurting me. Not disrespecting you. Just embarrassing her. That night, I went back to the apartment once I knew she wasn't there. I brought boxes. Trash bags. Not to take more things, but to create distance. I packed her belongings neatly. Folded clothes. Shoes paired. Toiletries boxed. I labeled everything. Bedroom. Bathroom. Closet. I left them stacked by the door like evidence. Then I sat on the floor and ate takeout straight from the container. No TV. No music. Just the hum of the fridge. At 11:42 p.m., she called again. I didn't answer. Instead, I texted one sentence. Your things are packed. I'll coordinate pickup. The reply came instantly. You're really choosing this. I didn't respond. Because that's the lie people tell themselves when consequences arrive. That someone else chose the ending, instead of simply stopping themselves from being quietly erased. I slept in my own bed that night. Alone. Door locked. Apartment silent. For the first time in months, the silence didn't feel like tension. It felt like relief. By morning, the narrative had shifted again. It always does when someone realizes they're losing control. Jenna showed up at the apartment while I was at work. I know because my neighbor texted me asking if everything was okay. Said she heard crying in the hallway. Apparently, Jenna had been sitting on the floor outside the door, back against the wall, phone in her hand like it might save her if she held it tightly enough. She left before I got home. When I did come back, there was a note taped to the door. Not slipped under. Taped. like she wanted it to be seen by anyone passing by. I never thought you'd actually abandon me. I peeled it off and folded it once, twice, put it in the junk drawer without rereading it. Around 8 p.m., she finally texted something different. Can we please talk in person? No fighting. Just talk. That's the thing about ultimatums. They kill the need for conversations. Talking is for when both people still believe the outcome matters. I replied, there's nothing left to discuss. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then the longest message she'd sent yet. She said she felt blindsided. That couples fight. That people say things they don't mean. That I should have known she was just venting. She reminded me of trips we'd taken. Inside jokes. Plans we'd talked about someday. Not once did she mention the sentence that started this. Not once did she acknowledge how casually she'd placed another man above me and dared me to accept it or leave. That omission mattered more than everything else combined. I typed and erased 5 different replies. Then I sent nothing. Late that night, a new name popped up on my phone. Aaron. Hey man, Jenna's really upset. This feels like a misunderstanding. I stared at the screen and felt something settle permanently in my chest. I didn't respond to him either. Because when the person your partner prioritizes feels comfortable mediating your breakup, it tells you exactly how long you were being edged out without realizing it. I turned my phone face down and went to bed. Some endings don't need closure. They just need distance. The next morning was the first one where my phone didn't wake me up. No buzzing. No missed calls stacking like debris. Just sunlight coming through the blinds and the quiet hum of the city outside. I stayed in bed longer than usual, not because I was sad, but because nothing was pulling at me. At work, people noticed. Not in a dramatic way. Just small comments. You look rested. New haircut. You good, man? I realized how long it had been since anyone asked that without it being followed by a complaint I was expected to absorb. Around noon, Jenna emailed me. Not texted. Emailed. Like we were suddenly professionals negotiating a merger. She apologized again. This time carefully. Structured. Bullet point calm. She said she never meant to make me feel replaceable. That Aaron was just a friend. That she panicked when I questioned her, and panicking made her defensive. She said she understood now how her words landed. She said she loved me. The email ended with, please don't let one moment define us. But that's the thing people don't like admitting. Some moments do define everything that comes after. That sentence on Maple Street didn't come from nowhere. It came from comfort. From knowing she could say it, and I'd swallow it like I always had. From believing I was stable enough to be taken for granted. I replied with 1 paragraph. I told her I wasn't angry, that I didn't hate her, that I believed she loved me in the way she knew how. But I also told her I wouldn't stay in a relationship where my presence was conditional on my silence. I wished her well. I meant it. She didn't reply. That evening, I met my friend Leo for a beer. I hadn't told many people what happened yet. I gave him the short version. He listened, nodded, didn't interrupt. Then he said, man, that wasn't about dinner. No, I said. It really wasn't. On the walk home, I passed Maple Street. Same cracked sidewalk. Same trees. Same spot where she'd stopped and crossed her arms. I didn't feel angry standing there. I felt grateful. Because some people only show you who they are when they think you won't leave. And some of us only learn who we are the moment we do. 2 days later, Jenna came to pick up her things. I wasn't home. That was intentional. I arranged for my sister to be there instead. Neutral presence. No emotions to negotiate with. No history to weaponize. Just logistics. From what my sister told me later, Jenna showed up confident at first. Sunglasses on. Chin up. Like she still thought this was reversible if she handled it right. That didn't last. She asked if I was really not coming. My sister said no. That the boxes were labeled. That everything was accounted for. That she had 2 hours before the parking pass expired. Apparently Jenna sat on the couch for a while without touching anything. Just looking around like the apartment had rearranged itself out of spite. She cried eventually. Then she got mad. Then she cried again. At one point, she asked, did he say anything about me? My sister told her the truth. No. That, according to my sister, was the hardest part. Because anger still feels like connection. Silence doesn't. That night, Jenna posted a photo on Instagram. Black and white. Wine glass. Caption about choosing peace and knowing your worth. Comments full of hearts, and you deserve better energy from people who had no idea what actually happened. Aaron liked it within minutes. I didn't feel jealous. I didn't feel replaced. I felt confirmed. Later, Jenna texted me one last time. I hope one day you understand why I said what I said. I stared at it for a while before replying. I do. She didn't answer. And that was it. No dramatic showdown. No final apology. Just the slow realization settling in that the person who told me to leave never thought I would. By the end of the week, her side of the closet was empty. The apartment echoed differently. Less cluttered. Less tense. I slept better. Not because I won, but because I stopped trying to earn a seat at a table where my absence was always an option. The weekend after everything settled was strangely quiet. No errands planned around someone else's mood. No waiting for texts that might change the day. Just time, unclaimed. I cleaned the apartment properly for the first time since we moved in. Not because it needed it, but because I wanted to see what it looked like without her fingerprints everywhere. I moved the couch. Took down the art she liked, but I never did. Put my books back on the shelf instead of stacking them in a corner to keep things minimal. It started to feel like mine again. On Sunday afternoon, I ran into one of Jenna's friends at the grocery store. She froze when she saw me, then gave me that tight smile people use when they've already heard a version of events. "I heard you and Jenna. You know?" she said carefully. "Yeah," I replied. She hesitated. "She's really hurting." I nodded. I believed that. That seemed to confuse her, like she expected me to defend myself or explain. Instead, she said, "She didn't think you'd actually walk away." I smiled, small and polite. Neither did I, until I did. Later that night, I found myself scrolling through old photos. Trips, birthdays, random Tuesdays on the couch. I didn't feel regret. I felt context. I saw how often I'd leaned in while she leaned away. How often I'd adjusted while she decided. How many times I'd swallowed discomfort because I didn't want to be that guy. The guy who asks for space. The guy who wants reassurance. The guy who doesn't want another man seated where he should be. Somewhere along the way, I confused patience with loyalty. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a notification from an unknown number. It was Jenna's mom. She asked if we could talk. Said she was worried about her daughter. Said she didn't understand how things ended so suddenly. I typed a response. Deleted it. Then typed something simpler. It wasn't sudden for me. She didn't reply. I went to bed feeling lighter than I had in years. Not because I was free of Jenna, but because I was finally free of the version of myself that kept negotiating for basic respect. A week later, the quiet stopped feeling temporary. It became normal. I stopped checking my phone first thing in the morning. I stopped bracing myself when notifications came in. The apartment settled into a rhythm that didn't revolve around anticipating someone else's reactions. One evening, as I was washing dishes, I caught myself humming. It startled me. I hadn't realized how long it had been since my body felt safe enough to do something that small without permission. Jenna never reached out again. What I did hear, through mutual friends and secondhand conversations I didn't ask for, was that she was confused. That she kept saying she never meant for things to end. That she told people she thought I'd cool off and come back once I realized how dramatic I'd been. That part didn't hurt. It clarified. Because it meant she still didn't understand what she'd lost. Not me specifically, but the stability of someone who stayed even when it was uncomfortable. I wasn't angry at her anymore. Anger requires energy. I didn't have any left for that. One night, I walked past Maple Street again. Same block, same trees, same stretch of sidewalk where everything changed. I stood there for a moment and realized something important. She didn't end the relationship when she told me to leave. I did, when I listened. Silence didn't punish her. Distance didn't teach her a lesson. They just explained the outcome. She learned that words matter. I learned that self-respect sounds quiet when you finally use it. And somewhere between that walk, the locked door, and sleeping alone in my own bed, I stopped being someone who waits to be chosen. I chose myself. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Bye-bye.